Attention shoppers, clean up on aisle 14. Clean up on aisle 14. Someone dropped a jar of pickles. Pickles. Kosher pickles.
Beatboxing at a big box store. Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
A red minivan has the lights on in the parking lot.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Geico.
Golic and Wingo with you on ESPN Radio and ESPN2, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line in just a few moments. Tom Waddle of Waddle and Sylvie on ESPN Chicago will join us. Of course, played at Boston College, I believe, right?
Yes, he did.
BC guy, and then went on to have a very interesting and fun career with the Bears. He'll join us to talk about the reaction to Matt Nagy as the head coach, the new head coach of the Chicago Bears, and what the expectations are, and what he thought of some of the comments Matt Nagy said, not only about what happened in Kansas City, where they blew that 18-point lead on Saturday, but what the expectations are going forward. And it's interesting because, you know, there are people that believe that Bears job with the right guy there, with some building blocks and Tariq Cohen and Jordan Howard, that they have some things to work with.
I like some of the pieces they have to work with there, without question. And we'll see if Nagy, but Nagy, listen, one of his main jobs is to bring along Mitch Trubisky.
Yep.
I mean, that's the most important position on the field. Mitch got all the time he could get last year, working through some of the good, some of the bad. Now he has to continue to take those positive steps forward. It's Nagy's main job is to bring Mitch along, and then Pace's job is to help get other pieces of the puzzle to go around Mitch to help that team out. I do believe they have some nice building blocks there.
And again, we'll talk to Tom in just a few minutes, but let's get you started this hour with What's Trending. And we'll start with Kevin Durant, set to make his return to action tonight against the Clippers. The Warriors forward is just 25 points away from scoring 20,000 for his career, which would be the second youngest player, Mike, to reach that milestone.
Yeah, LeBron James is the youngest at 28 years, 17 days. Kevin Durant looks like he'll be the second youngest. And then you add other guys who got to 20,000 career points before turning 30. LeBron, it will be Kevin Durant, Kobe Bryant, Wilt Chamberlain, and Michael Jordan. And remember, Steph Curry is also back. He missed 11 games with the ankle injury. He's back now, and for 5 games he's been back. I mean, are you kidding me? Averaging 35 points, 50% shooting from the field, 53% from three-point land. So, you know, they've gone through the Knicks. Obviously, Durant missing some games this year, missed some last year with the hyperextended knee. You worry some with Curry in the ankles because that's been recurring for him. But this team is healthy, wealthy, and wise come playoff time. Going to be very, very difficult to beat.
They certainly will, and it is funny. Just they have all these injuries, and it doesn't seem to matter. You know, I mean, Steph goes out for a while. KD's fine.
They got enough people to pick up the slack.
They have depth. They certainly do, and we'll continue. What's trending with listen, if you're our age, what you saw at Madison Square Garden last night was really pretty cool. Patrick Ewing made his return to Madison Square Garden for the first time as the head coach of the Georgetown Hoyas, and he pulled out a 3-point victory over St. John's, coached by another Big East legend back in the day, Chris Mullin.
These two teams were always ranked like very high in the top 3 or 4 when they faced each other 4 times. Ewing's team won 3 of those 4 games. They were on 2 Olympic teams together. So you want to talk about nostalgia, and just, you know, the Big East just isn't what it was. I mean, when they were playing there, that was when I was finishing up college, rather than the same age basically as those guys, and just those battles in the Big East and those teams and those 2 players. To see them hanging out and coaching and struggling in St. John, certainly they're winless in the conference, and Georgetown started out 8-0. They're 12-4 right now. Let's see if they can turn those programs around. But just seeing those 2 together, seeing each other, Chris Mullin said he wore a tie for Ewing for this game. But, man, it should make you go back and Google the highlights of when their teams played against one another and what was at stake when they did. And it just brings back some great memories of some great Big East play.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, they were terrific. I think those 2 played on 2 Olympic teams. The first team was the impetus for the Dream Team in 1984. That was the best college, I think, team we ever had put together. Patrick Ewing, Michael Jordan, Wayman Tisdale, Chris Mullin, Vern Fleming. I mean, it went on and on. That team was so good, Charles Barkley didn't make it.
Right.
That's
this was college.
Yeah,
this was before they brought in the pros, right?
And then we lost in '88, and like, screw that. '92, we brought up the big guns. We got everybody in, and that was the impetus for the real Dream Team. But you know, quick story: I'm wearing a Georgetown hoodie or pullover here today because my son went and played football there. And the first time I ever went on campus to meet and talk to some of the coaches and stuff, I was in D.C. I was going to interview Commissioner Goodell on the Hill, and so I just sort of went over to the campus, and I walked up near Georgetown, and this very large man goes, "Hey, Trey Wingo." I'm like, "Well, hello, Patrick Ewing. Very nice to see you."
Patrick Ewing sought you out.
Which I thought was a little freaky.
Wow.
And I told him why he was there. He goes, "Oh, hop in the car with me. I'll take you where you need to go." So Patrick Ewing gave me a ride over to McDonough Sports Hall over there on the campus of Georgetown. I thought that was a pretty good omen that things might go well.
That's pretty good. That one should be a Trey question.
Yeah.
Right there is who initiated the conversation with Trey Wingo and Patrick Ewing saw one another.
Patrick Ewing is hard to miss.
Yeah, I would say so.
He is an imposing figure. And actually, we saw him again. The one thing Georgetown does great for the graduating class, they rent out Union Station in Washington, D.C., and they have the big congratulations party there.
Right.
There's 3 layers. The invitation is great, and Patrick was over there glad handing everybody.
That's really
so
cool.
I saw him at the beginning of my son's and at the end. So it worked out really well.
Very nice.
So very happy for Patrick, and things are going well for him with the Hoyas. And we finish up what's trending with a poll showing that 55% of Americans believe they are smarter than the average American. So how does that work?
Well, 5% have to be wrong.
Correct.
Do you think you're smarter than the average American?
I'm smarter than the average bear.
Pick out the average. So let's do a war for smarts.
Who wins against replacement?
The average American.
Wins above replacements in war.
Are you above that, or what's your war for the average American?
I'm going to say I'm decidedly average, so I'm probably right at the line.
So you're saying 50. You're not saying above? You're not saying the average American.
I'm going to say I'm above.
Are you smarter?
I'm going to say yes.
I'm saying I'm smarter than the average American.
Yeah. By the way, smarter than the average bear was old Yogi Bear.
Which means we both may be in the 5% who are wrong about this.
So at least 5.01% have to be wrong and are in fact dumber than the average American.
There you go. It could be us.
You know what we need right now? We need the clip. We are all dumber for having heard this. Billy Madison. We need that clip right now. We've just wasted people's time.
Yes, we have.
That is funny though. At least 5% have to be wrong.
Have to be wrong on that.
Well, I mean, if you're gonna spin, you want to be on the upside.
I would say so.
All right, but will it be an upside for the Chicago Bears with their new head coaching hire? And for that, let's bring in Tom Waddle, former Bears receiver, but you best know him as the host of the wildly popular and #1 show in all of Chicago radio, if I'm not mistaken. Waddle and Sylvie. That is correct, right?
Yes, you got that exactly the way it was written. Thank you.
You're welcome. Check is in the mail. Thank you very much, Waddle and Sylvie on ESPN 1000. Okay, so it was obviously, Tommy, a very lackluster year for the Chicago Bears on a lot of levels.
Yes.
The reaction of hiring Matt Nagy as the new head coach of Chicago is what in your city?
Very well received. I think there was a lot of optimism based on what was heard yesterday. I thought Matt came in and presented himself quite well. Very enthusiastic, very assertive. Sounds like a guy that, yes, could sit down and have a beer with you and have a nice conversation, but also he could put a foot in your rear end if you're not doing what he's asking you to do, whether you're the quarterback or you're a receiver. So I thought also one of the most impressive things about Matt's press conference yesterday was his willingness to take the accountability for what transpired in their loss to the Titans on Saturday, where he was asked a question pretty early in the press conference. Were you or were you not calling plays in the loss to the Titans? He said, I called them the entire game, including the second half, and I have some regrets. It was a mistake on my behalf and how we approached it. He said, and I hope to learn from that. So I thought he won, as we like to say, guys, he won the press conference. Does that mean he's going to win any more games on Sunday? No, but I think a lot of Bears fans loved what they heard.
How much, though, Tommy, because let's be honest, he's not outside of the world of football, not a very well-known name. You say Matt Nagy, people aren't saying, oh, yeah, I know who that is and his history. Right. Some guys that are named coaches, so fans have kind of a preconceived notion about a coach. But Nagy, did they have to be sold a bit on him because they didn't really know him?
Well, I think two things, Mike. One is that he's obviously very well known for developing quarterbacks, and all you got to do is look at Alex Smith as a Chief versus Alex Smith as a 49er, and we can say it's more than just what Matt Nagy did as his quarterbacks coach, and then there's his offensive coordinator. But he did a really nice job helping develop Alex Smith. And then, all you have to say is he's from Andy Reid's coaching tree, and that's as fruitful a coaching tree as there is in the National Football League. So I think that inspired some confidence as well. Yeah, we're still going to be in this town. It's going to be a get-to-know process, but because Ryan Pace tied his own job security and future to Mitchell Trubisky and moving up in the draft last year to pick him. And he tied the fate of the franchise for the next several years to this young quarterback. I think the desire was for Ryan to go out there and find the guy he thought was best suited to take Mitchell to higher heights. And I think that everyone is confident that Matt Nagy was the best choice for that.
Well, listen, as Tom Waddle is with us from Waddle and Sylvia on ESPN 1000 in Chicago. Again, it's the sports radio show in Chicago, and everybody there knows that. We're just making sure the rest of the country knows that as well. If they're going to do that, they have to get better at wide receiver because the running back situation is very solid with the pounder in Jordan Howard, and then obviously the special guy in Tariq Cohen. But where are they going to go to get more playmakers in the passing game? Because that is the number one question.
There's no doubt, Trey. And look, we've said this for weeks now. You can change a coach. That's fine. And that may be a one step that was necessary to be made. You have to develop the quarterback, but in the process of developing the quarterback, you got to give him more to work with. It was a very limited offense last year, not just in the play calling, and there were some questions whether or not they put Mitchell in position to do what he does best. But it was certainly limited with the lack of offensive firepower in that huddle. I think you have to pursue both vehicles. You have to go through free agency. And something that Ryan Pace did last year really didn't work out. Marcus Wheat was the guy they added that didn't work out. They obviously had the injury to Cam Meredith, which was unfortunate in preseason. Kevin White got hurt again. They used a second-round pick on Adam Shaheen, a young tight end from a small program. He played some and looked good at times, but really never established himself. They're going to have to pursue upgrades in both free agency and the draft. Now, how high up in the draft? I don't know because they have other needs. They could shore up their offensive line. They need another pass rusher. They need help in the secondary. Ryan Pace, now the hard work begins. I mean, now you have to give Matt Nagy and whoever fills out that coaching staff more to work with than was here last year.
Yeah, and certainly, as you mentioned, the wide receiver position, they picked 8th right now in the draft. What will they do in free agency even before the draft? How will that dictate to the draft? How about, we talk about Nagy's the quarterback guy, Mitch Trubisky, the offense. What about the defensive side of the ball? Where is that going from here?
Well, the hope here is now that other jobs have been filled, other DC jobs have been filled, and Vic Fangio is one of the top candidates to fill some of those openings and did a fantastic job here. He and Ed Donatel and John Fox did a very nice job over the last 3 years, really getting the most out of this defense. And it was a defense that ranked in the top 10, both in yards allowed and points allowed, I believe, at the end of the year. The hope here is that Vic decides to stay and that there will be no transition from what has been here for the last 3 years to something different. And I think that would be the best case scenario for this team. Again, Matt Nagy may turn out to be a fantastic head coach in this league, but right now he's got his hands full with a young quarterback and an offense that needs to be rebuilt. The best scenario, in my opinion, would be he could look across the hall and see that his defense is completely under the direction of Vic Fangio and feel very comfortable. So that's a decision that I think a lot of Bears fans are hoping is made today.
All right, Tom Waddle with us from Waddle and Sylvia on ESPN 1000 in Chicago. Let's go to where the Bears are hoping they will be next year, and that's in the postseason, something that has been a hard go for them over the last few years. So as you're looking at these games, you have Tennessee at New England, you have Philadelphia hosting Atlanta, and that one is really interesting. I think those are the games on Saturday. I don't know, Tom, if we've ever had a number one seed not feel like a number one seed,
right,
which was really because of one player not being there, Carson Wentz, which is unfair because the team is, look, the Eagles are a very good team, but again, do you really believe with what we've seen out of Nick Foles going up against a really good, by the way, Falcons defense down the stretch of the season, that they can find a way to win a game?
I think it's the question of the weekend. I give the Eagles a chance. Look, I know Nick Foles is going to have to make some plays, but this is a top 5 rushing attack, and this is an excellent defense as well. And I heard you guys talking with Damian earlier in the show, and yes, Mike, you're right. The forecast is 50 degrees, and it's not going to be a disaster. But the later in the day that gets, maybe being outside in less than perfect conditions does at some point get to the Falcons. I would caution those that think that the Falcons are coming to town just to roll the Eagles. I don't see it happening that way. I think if the Eagles can come out and establish their running game, play good, solid defense, and Nick Foles is going to have to make a few plays to get the safety out of the box, I give the Eagles a chance. I mean, there's a reason why. Carson Wentz was arguably the best player in the league at the time he got hurt, but this is a complete team. So
they really
I wouldn't be so quick to write them off.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I think a lot of people think the top two is New England and Pittsburgh in the AFC. Now Jacksonville will have something to say with that, and Tennessee. You have to give them their due, as Tennessee fans are screaming, saying, "Wait a minute, we're still in this thing." But I think a lot more people, because of the Carson Wentz injury, Tommy, feel that the NFC is way more wide open to the fact that could Atlanta pull this off in Philly, and then the winner of New Orleans and Minnesota could have a great shot as well. Dome game for two dome teams with New Orleans traveling up there. That game, to me, that Minnesota defense against what the versatility of that New Orleans offense probably has me salivating more than any other game.
I agree with you, Mike. And look, I love what the Jags do on defense, and they're explosive, and they'll get you quarterback, and they'll take the ball away. The cornerbacks are elite. If you ask me what the best, most complete defense in the league is, and I would probably say the Vikings. They have playmakers at all three levels. I know that wouldn't play well in Jacksonville, and there's some in the AFC that believe that by far they're the best defense in the league. I'll take what Mike Zimmer's doing on Sunday every Sunday. So that's a tough one. I mean, the New Orleans Saints come in as balanced as we've seen them since they won the Super Bowl. Obviously, you take away his running game we saw last week against the Panthers, and you ask Drew Brees to beat you, and he'll go ahead and do that against you. So I think this comes down to whether or not Case Keenum can make some plays in the postseason the way he made them in the regular season. And if he does that, I think the home team will win. If he doesn't and he makes a few mistakes, I think the Saints probably come away with a win on the road.
Well, that actually is the entire question, is it not? Because you can't deny what Case Keenum has done once he had the opportunity in the regular season, and he played at a very high level. But as much as people have seen that all season long, Tommy, it feels like every time you talk about Case, like, we'll see in the postseason. That New Orleans Saints defense is legitimate. How confident are you in the fact that Case can play close to the same level that he played in the regular season in his first playoff start?
Honestly, I'd say somewhat confident. It's not fair. I mean, it really isn't fair to look at the situation and say, well, Case Keenum had 22 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. He took care of the football. He made big plays. He made all the right decisions. He threw for better than 3,500 yards. Why can't he do it in the postseason? Well, my answer would be because it's the postseason. I mean, it's different. It doesn't make any sense. I get it. But, there are going to be doubts about whether or not he can do it in the most important time. It's not fair. But until he does it in the postseason, there are going to be those who scratch their head. Look, I think some of those same questions were asked about Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan was a fantastic quarterback, struggled in the postseason. He gets them to the Super Bowl, and then some of those questions go away. So I think that, unfortunately, in an unfair fashion, Case Keenum is just going to be looked at kind of, now you got to prove it in the most important moment.
And again, that until someone sees it, that will be a lot of the way that people look at Case, right. No matter with the success he had with Thielen and Stephon Diggs and everything else that's gone so well in Minnesota. Boy, they are, as the 2 seed, they feel like the 1 seed because of what's happened in Philadelphia. And you just hope
that's a great football team. That is a great football team.
Every
and
level.
They are so well coached. Yes, absolutely.
Every
they do
level.
it all well.
All right, Tommy, we appreciate you being with us, and I'm sure you have plenty to talk about today on Waddle and Sylvie on ESPN 1000 in Chicago. Thank you, brother.
By the way, guys, all seriousness, you guys love listening to you, love watching you. You guys are doing great. You guys are fantastic.
Thanks,
all
right.
Okay,
whatever. Thanks.
Boom, right back at you.
There you go, brother. We'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Listen, with Matt Nagy, again, he's not a household name.
No.
So, a lot of times you get caught up in they're going to hire a big name, a name everybody knows to kind of have people say, yeah, we got that guy, when, you want to try and get the best guy. And you have a young quarterback, you need to develop a quarterback. Now, we've gone through that a bit with the Ben McAdoo, with the success he had with Eli, and then they made him the head coach. Dirk Cutter, they ousted Lovie Smith, because Dirk Cutter seems to have a good relationship with Jameis Winston.
And then that didn't work.
And sometimes it just doesn't work. But Sean McVay going to the Rams, a 31-year-old, he and Jared Goff are really meshing extremely well. But you have to take care of the most important position on the field, whether it's a defensive coach that hires a great offensive mind that can develop a quarterback, or a head coach that has that in his background as well to develop a quarterback. And then what that head coach then has to do is hire somebody on the defensive side of the ball that they implicitly trust to say, okay, the defense, that's yours. You take care of that area.
Well, it is interesting because if you're a GM you always want to have your guy as the coach, right? That's the marriage that's most important. And if you're a head coach, probably the most important thing is you want to have your guy as the quarterback. And it seems like through this process, because as Matt Nagy alluded to in some of that sound we played, when he was with Kansas City and they were deciding Trubisky or Patrick Mahomes maybe in the draft, they were all in on Mahomes, but Trubisky had already been gone at 2. It sounded like he had really a positive feeling about what he saw from Trubisky in the evaluation process before he got there. So, again, if that works, things usually go pretty well. Yep. And if it doesn't work, that's when you see all kinds of problems. All right, when we come back, an NFL owner said it was the best day of his life yesterday. Golic and Wingo here with you. Glad you're with us on ESPN Radio and ESPN2, presented by Progressive Insurance. Phone guests join us via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And the worst-kept secret in the NFL was officially announced, or introduced. It was actually announced like less than an hour after he called the wild card game for us on ESPN and ABC. Jon Gruden introduced as the new head coach of the Oakland Raiders. Raiders owner Mark Davis said it was a big effing deal.
Yes, he did.
And also said it was the greatest day of his life.
Wow.
And then Gruden explained how this relationship between Mark Davis and him sort of blossomed into him coming back as the head coach again 20 years after he was hired the first time.
Mark and I have been friends a long time. I think over the last 6-7 years we have talked about the Raiders, not necessarily becoming a coach, but maybe ways that we could improve the Raiders, or my vision how I thought I could help them. But Mark came to me a few weeks ago and asked me if I had any intentions of coaching, and with the support of my family, I said, yes, I do. And it's a mysterious way that it all came together, but here I am, Jerry. I really don't have a solid explanation other than that.
A couple things. You got to be careful. I didn't know that over the last 6-7 years they've still been talking, about the Raiders and overall and stuff. And you certainly have to be careful of it not being talk about being the head coach if they had a head coach under contract, already, and things like that.
Well, there are discussions and then there air quote discussions.
And even just a couple of weeks ago, you don't want to hear about them. They were negotiating this before Jack Del Rio was fired, even though we know some of that stuff can go on. Not saying that it went on here. And I thought it also interesting when you knew somebody was going to ask. It was reported you signed a 10-year deal for $100 million. What do you have to say about that? I thought the perfect answer was my contract. I'm not giving out any details. I love that he was like, I don't really know the details of it.
You know that one though.
But I know he knows.
You know that one.
I know he knows the end number, or his wife knows the end number of that thing. You may not know all the details of it, but you certainly know some of it. But I would have no problem with him saying, listen, it's nobody's business but mine. I'm not going to discuss my contract. But he seemed genuinely happy, genuinely emotional. He loves the Raiders, no doubt about it. And the thing that really impresses me again is the list of players that were there. Former greats for the Raiders. I think they are the best in the business when it comes to former players being around for that team in big moments. And a lot of them came together for that. A lot have worked for the organization when they were done. I just think that they've just kind of had that great kind of home community feeling amongst people if you played for them, and they do a great job with it. So they're kind of all for one for all, whether they're in L.A., Oakland, or soon to be Las Vegas.
Yeah, the interesting thing there about the contract is that, I understand why he wouldn't want to say that, but, every single player's contract is splashed out over every media outlet there is. We know exactly. And, we do it here on this show. We do it a lot on NFL Live. Oh, he's making this much per play, this much per game, all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of hard to get around dealing with that.
It is. That's why I just say, and I'm not going to talk about it. Basically, I just say it's out there, but, I'm not going to get into the details of it. He's going to, he's going to dive hard into the details of helping this team, a team that 2 years ago, 12-4. Everybody thought this was the up-and-comer, but Derek Carr breaks his legs, and then this year was a disappointing year. So how he's going to kind of build them back up to close to what they were a couple of years ago, and how it all goes. This is the 12th time a coach since 1960 goes back and does a second stint with a team, and it really hasn't gone that great. Only 4 have made the postseason. None have won a Super Bowl. And they stayed an average of less than 3 years, where in the first time they were with their team, the average was about 6 years. The second time was an average of about 3 years. Their winning percentage is way down from 63% in the first stint to like 40% in the second stint. So it does not bode well for coaches going back to the same team they coached with the first time as far as results. We'll see if it's different here.
And the other thing I thought was really interesting what he talked about, remember, he was traded away.
Yeah, he was.
From Oakland to Tampa, and then, of course, won a Super Bowl over his old team. Normally when that happens, you don't have that sort of level of respect and love for the team that traded you away. I once asked Hall of Fame linebacker Sam Huff, who went from the Giants to the Redskins, and he had the same number of years with each team. And I said, do you consider yourself more a Giant or a Redskin? He goes, a Redskin, because those bastards traded me away.
Right, yeah.
So it's interesting that he has the love for the Raiders despite the fact that they were the ones that sort of shipped him off.
Here's what's interesting. If you believe the report that Tampa Bay did want him, that Tampa Bay, it just got out of their league as far as what they were willing to pay for him, that he could have been the coach at Tampa Bay. And if he would have taken that one, with the team he won the Super Bowl with, and when he got inducted into the Ring of Honor there and the former players that were there, he really looked like he was enjoying that and had that old kind of Jon Gruden coach mentality about him. So that would have been an interesting scenario if, in fact, those reports were true, and Tampa Bay wanted him as well, but just didn't match the money.
Well, to that point, he did say he has unfinished business, and he finished his business in Tampa. They did. They won Super Bowl 37, 48-21 in ridiculous fashion with a bunch of pick sixes in that game.
Right.
It felt like it was like that Oprah, you get a car, you get a car, you get a pick six, you get a pick six. Rich Gannon wants me to stop talking about that. Sorry, Rich. I'll stop talking about that right now. But the other thing was it just goes back to how long he's felt like he was a part of that organization and how it ended with the Tuck rule. So good luck to him. Best of luck to John. Obviously, we'll miss him here, and we'll see how it plays out for him. But you're right. History suggests it may not go as rosy as he thinks, but he can always stack those cash because Gruden has been away from coaching 9 years, got more guaranteed money than any NFL player ever has. Matthew Stafford got $92 million guaranteed in his deal. Players have signed for bigger numbers.
Yeah.
But when you're a coach, you sign for 10 years.
That's what your deal is.
You get all of it.
Yeah.
Unless you're fired for
cause. For cause, right.
In some way.
But for the most part, that's guaranteed. It's like baseball. It's like basketball.
Yep.
You can look at that last number and say that's what you're getting. In football, you don't. The last number is that big number, but it's what's guaranteed. So that's all guaranteed for him. But he's a passionate guy. He's a passionate coach. Certainly the money has to sway you. I mean, and I would have, when you get a baseball player or somebody that says, hey, I did a lot for the money, it was the highest bidder, I have no problem with that at all. So money is a big part of it, but he truly is a passionate coach, and we'll look to see what he does with that team. In dealing, too, because it was also brought up, dealing with this younger crowd.
Yeah. That's going to be his issue. Keyshawn mentioned it with us yesterday.
He did, and we'll get John on at some point and talk to him. I don't know if John was, but was he a guy, or is this just of late? I'm sure other coaches have had it, where you kind of have that group of players, like a leadership committee, like Tom Coughlin, had when he was with the Giants, to kind of help relate, to be that liaison to the rest of the team, have a group of players. If he did that, if he'll do that now, or that's definitely one of the biggest changes, because you're talking from 34 to 54. That's a big stretch of how old you are and dealing with the players you dealt with then, to being 54 now and dealing with 20-somethings.
Yeah, and that'll be the challenge for him, and sometimes that's a problem. But what we've noticed about this is he goes back to that relationship that he has with the Raiders, and how it goes back 20 years when he was hired. It's been 16 years since he left.
But 20 years since he got there.
Got there. And so that's still stuck with him. And part of the things we've been doing today, we've been talking about our relationships with arena football and Matt Nagy, how that has gone back while we both covered him as an arena football quarterback, and now he's the head coach of the Bears. And it got us to thinking about when we did arena football games, and you did it with Greeny for all those years, and I did it with Schlereth, and that was part of the the questions about me, the longest colleague I've ever worked with, and that was Schlereth. And I do have to tell this story because, Mark is one of the greatest analysts of all time. He's doing a great job for Fox now.
Is.
And he actually listens to our show on the way into his radio show in Denver. Before his show. But I have to tell the story about Super Bowl 42. When you're when you're going to cover the Super Bowl and be on the field after the game, you have to leave early.
Yeah, you do.
In the fourth quarter to get down there. They hoard you down.
And they don't care if it's a close game or not. You got to get there.
You got to go.
Yeah.
So I called Mark, who had left. And I said, Mark, I'm going down. We're all walking down. We don't have a monitor. We can't see the game. And this is Super Bowl 42 when the Patriots were trying to cap the unbeaten season,
right,
and the Giants were trying to take down a team that had never lost a game that year. So I'm like, Mark, we're all walking. You need to tell us on the phone what's going on. He's like, right. So it's the first play. Eli's got the ball. Looks like they're in a zone blitz. I'm like, Mark, don't tell me about the blocking schemes. Tell me about the ball. Right. Got it. So it's check down, first down, a little run, blah, blah, blah. So we get to this big play, and it's Eli scrambling around. First down. They caught it. Okay, great. And then we got inside the stadium, and I could see the monitor.
Right.
So now I see the end of the game, and I see the touchdown pass that Eli throws to Plexico Burress.
Sure, Plexico scores that touchdown.
And I'm going to get the first interview with Plexico. I'm going to run onto that field. I'm going to be the first guy on there. So as soon as they let us on the field, I make a beeline with the cameraman. We are hauling you-know-what to get to Plexico Burress. And I'm interviewing him, and I'm the only one around Plexico Burress.
Right.
This is amazing. I'm getting the one. Where's everybody
else? So
at
what point did it hit you?
It never did until I finished the interview and I walked past 1 million people around David Tyree. And I'm like, why are they talking to that scrub? He's like the punt returner and the fourth receiver on the field. Well, it turns out the play where David Tyree stuck the helmet against his head when Eli Manning was almost sacked and escaped, Mark Schlereth described it to me this way. Eli running around, throws it, first down.
Yeah.
The worst
that was it.
Play-by-play guy in the history of television. So, Mark, I'm happy that things are going well for you at Fox, but stay in your lane.
Stay in the analyst role. Yeah, don't go to the play-by-play role. Stay to the analyst role.
Let Dick Stockton do that because you are awful at it. You are absolutely awful at it.
That is hilarious. That's how he described that play.
Eli scrambles, throws it, it's caught, first down. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
Really appreciate you.
Way to paint the picture.
Really helped me out there in my moment of need. And you want to be my latex salesman.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, coming up, one of the best NFL teams in recent memory has fired a coordinator who may be remembered for the worst thing he ever did. Golic and Wingo here with you. We've talked a lot about head coaches.
Yes.
But when you have head coaching changes, there's sweeping changes in staffs as well. And sometimes staffs make changes when they keep the head coach. For example, Jason Garrett is staying as the Cowboys head coach, but they've made a ton of changes on that staff.
Right.
Ron Rivera is still the head coach in Carolina. Got an extension, but there's significant changes on his staff.
Yeah, Mike Shula, the offensive coordinator, and Ken Dorsey, the quarterback coach, both gone, which means they want somebody in that's going to, you're talking a guy in Cam Newton. This all is for the quarterback. In Cam Newton, who was the MVP of the league a couple of years ago, and you're trying to get back to that. So that coordinator and quarterback coach are going to be brought in to say, okay, how can we get Cam back to that? I don't know the answer to that. Remember, Cam holds a record for 139 carries in a season. Is he going to have to be doing that again, whether it's a design run or him just taking off and running with some of the hits he takes? Are they you want to try and develop him as a better passing quarterback from the pocket, get more maybe more speedy receivers. He's had the big receivers, the speedy receivers. You got that guy out of the backfield in McCaffrey, but a big change there going on in Carolina, and also a big change out in Seattle as well.
Darrell Bevell, the offensive coordinator, was fired after several years there, and Darrell did a lot of really good things, but unfortunately for him, I think one thing that will stick with him for a long time is what happened at the end of Super Bowl 49.
Right, not handing the ball off.
They had a first and goal, and I believe it was the second play. They were inside the 5-yard line. They had Marshawn Lynch, who was just hammering them, the Patriots defense, and he calls the inside slant to their fourth best receiver, Malcolm Butler, to his credit, and it was documented in that great NFL Network films, Do Your Job.
Yeah.
I mean, he saw that play in practice, and he got burned on it, and then he realized what was coming because they tried to screen him, and he cut in front of the wide receiver and picked off the pass, thus allowing the Patriots to win that game 28-24 when it looked for all the world like Seahawks were going to go back-to-back Super Bowl champs.
But obviously it's more than that. I mean, you're not firing a guy for one play that happened a few years ago, but this is an offense right now. And listen, part of it is the pieces you get to work with. You mentioned it when they were the Super Bowl teams, their offensive line. They spent a ton of money on it, right?
Yep.
They were one of the highest capped positions on the team.
When they won Super Bowl 48, they had more cap dollars invested in their offensive line than any other team.
Now it's the least.
That's exactly right.
Now it's the least. So, I mean, some of it is the players you have around you and what you're going to do. I think Jimmy Graham Now he made the Pro Bowl this year and such, but is he still being used as much? More. I think he had 9 touchdowns this year, so certainly more involved in the offense. The running game is non-existent. You had injuries with running backs, and Darrell Bevell had been there a while as well. So that was, like I said, sometimes coaches that are staying, they're going to shake up their staff, and this is a big shake up there.
It really is. And we had Minkah Fitzpatrick, the outstanding Alabama defensive back, who looks like he's going to be entering the draft. He has to declare before Monday. And you brought up the great story with him where he was in the medical tent using the bathroom when the 4th and 4 play came that Tua threw the touchdown pass to tie it. And he said the crowd noise told me whether or not I was either going to we had scored, or I was going to have to go play defense one more time. And there's a story that goes along with me with Darrell Bevell there back to that Super Bowl. As we said in the Schlereth story, they hoard you down and take you down on the field to get you ready to go on the postgame so you don't see the end of the game. Well, in Super Bowl 49, we were downstairs and we're underneath that stadium in Houston, and there was one tiny TV monitor, but it was on about a 10-second delay. And so we're down there for that final drive, and we hear the stadium go nuts. I mean, it went crazy. And then 10 seconds later, we saw the replay of Jermaine Kearse making that unbelievable catch that Russell just sort of heaved up.
So you had no idea what had happened.
No idea
you had to
what
wait
it was.
for the delay.
So we heard this huge noise, and then we saw the catch. And then about a couple minutes later, we heard a noise, and it wasn't quite as loud. And we're like, okay, that was a Seahawk roar before. This sounds like it's a Patriots roar. And then 10 seconds later, we saw the interception where Malcolm Butler came in front of the receiver and picked it off and preserved the win for the Patriots. So it was I know exactly what Minkah's talking about. The difference in the roar for the Seahawk fans on the good play was completely different than the roar for the Patriots fans, because there were more Seahawk fans in that game than there were Patriots fans.
I just think it's an incredible story. In the national championship game, one of the biggest plays of the game, Minkah Fitzpatrick is in the tent
relieving himself.
Yeah. I mean,
what you have to do.
That's what, so when he's asked by his grandkids years from now, Grandpa, where were you in that play? Well, I was going to the bathroom.
Funny story, kids.
Yeah, funny story on that one.
15, 20 years from now, when his playing career is over and he's on the banquet circuit, as a 2-time national champion for Alabama, probably a 5-time Pro Bowler. What's your greatest story? Well, let me tell you about the last game I played in college and how I knew we were actually going to win it again. Great story, and we wish Minkah all the best.
We do. And he did, while he didn't commit to it with us, he did say he was leaning
heavily.
Which isn't a shock. I don't think it's going to be any shock at all. You may have 5, 6 Bama players leaving early for this draft. Going to be interesting.
Number 2 guy on Mel Kiper's big board. All right, coming up tomorrow, we got Bill Poley and Stu Gatz and Adam Schefter, and we believe a member of the Saxonville Jaguars. We'll see you then.
See you.
Hello, I'd like to deposit this to checking.
Fate is a fickle master.
What?
The future is uncertain.
Okay, and what's my account balance?
The horizon is cloudy. I see a long, treacherous voyage filled with great peril.
Look, can I just get a deposit slip or something?
A fortune bank teller. Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
I see a yellow-eyed serpent and a low APR.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.